SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. Inviting listeners to give us a call if you've got a story to share, or a comment perhaps, or maybe a lead, some information that these folks could use. So let's just jump into it. Thank you for coming in, Mark. We appreciate you making time for us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, I guess we've kind of touched on this subject in different formats before, but let's kind of get a capsule. What is the Native American Paranormal Project?
The Native American Paranormal Project is it's a documentary series that I started in 2011. It's kind of inspired by those shows you see on TV, but it's not like the ones you see on TV. Basically, because the way I see it is we're just storytellers, and we're telling these stories of these locations, and the locations that we pick they have to have some kind of paranormal activity. I try to pick a location that has a really enriched history or some kind of past that either maybe the public or the native community might not be aware of. And then, of course, the paranormal activity has to have that too. And so what we did was in 2011, we put together an all-native team. They're from various tribes throughout here in Oklahoma. And we just go out there and we interview. We do a type of investigation, and then we document our footage and we show it to public screenings throughout native communities and just different places.
A couple points here right off the top. Now, you made a distinction between what you do and some of the stuff you see on TV.
Right.
A lot of those shows are, well, let's just use the phrase hokey and a little cheesy.
I agree.
They have, dramatic moments where they hear something. Did you hear that? And they all freeze. And I didn't hear nothing, and no one else ever does either. So, it's an effort to kind of bring a more legitimate focus to the subject, right?
Right.
Now, when we say paranormal, that's a pretty broad term. So how do you guys define it?
Mostly spirit activity is kind of what we focus on. It is a broad term, but usually spirits or just voices and stuff like that. With what we capture on devices would be what would be called EVPs, which is electronic voice phenomenons. And so we use that to tell the story as well. If we get something, it also helps in telling the story.
Okay.
Mark, this is Darren. Where all places have you been so far? I know you say you've been to a lot of locations throughout Oklahoma, but can you give us some of those? Can you tell us some of those places?
Yeah, a lot of the places we've been to, it seems like so far it's been a lot of boarding schools. With a lot of natives know about the history of boarding school and some don't. Or if they do, they might not know some of the bad things that happened. And I'm not here to say that every boarding school was like that. And if you watch the documentaries, we're not trying to say that either. But it did happen at some of these places. And so we try to tell that story. And so that was our first one. We went to Concho Boarding School in El Reno. That was our very first documentary. And the series started as it was supposed to be one documentary. And the turnout that we had at our premiere was just amazing. And then we started getting suggestions to go to another location. And everybody wants to go to their building or to their school or something. So it turned into a second location, which was Wheelock Academy, which was a boarding school for Choctaw girls. And so from that one, then word started getting out to what we were doing. And then we started getting calls, telling us to come and investigate their place. Grisso Mansion was our third one, and that's located in Seminole County. That was actually the first one that kind of was a home, And that one has a really deep history with the Seminole people, and the owner of the mansion, the guy, his name was Doc Grisso. And some of his dealings with the Seminole people is what kind of propelled our story and led to the investigation part of it as well. And then the fourth one was I was trying to do something a little bit different. We chose a Civil War fort, Fort Washita, down in Durant. And their ties into Native community was it was established to protect the Chickasaw and the Choctaw tribes. And after the war ended, a Choctaw family lived there for many, many years, the Colbert family. And so that was the link to the Native side. And on top of the feature documentaries, we do a bunch of short documentaries, like little, what we call mini documentaries. We've been to Sacred Heart. We've been to Seminary Hall in Northeastern, which is now Northeastern State University. And then our latest one, again, was trying to do something a little bit different. We chose a church, a Seminole church in Seminole County.
You know, with that, I guess that you're talking about like EVP, you know,
Right.
electronic voice phenomena. Has it gone any, I'm not saying it's stronger, I'm not trying to find the right word, stronger than that, or have y'all been maybe pushed or assaulted?
We're still alive, so
Yeah.
no. I think a couple of us throughout some certain investigations. Some are more active than others. I think a few of us have been physically just pushed. I know for a personal an example for me at Wheelock Academy, I was pushed out of one of the classrooms because I am really behind the scenes. I have the main camera A, and I separate the teams into like 3 teams, and so they're given assignments, and so they have within each team they have a recording device, camcorders, recorders, different things like that. They're getting their own footage. I have the main camera getting their footage, you know. So there's some times where I'm walking from a building or a room trying to find the next group. And so at Wheelock Academy, that happened where I was leaving the classrooms, about to go walk into the dorms to find the next team. As I was walking out of the classroom, I felt a hand on my shoulder and pushed me out the room or out the building. And that was, you know, the camera's in front of me, so you don't see what's behind me. We might have actually captured it if we had a camera on me. But I have the camera on it's a shoulder mount, so I have it pointed toward me. But you can see the footage of me walking, and then it just takes off running. And that was the point where I felt something touch me and push me. We had one of our team members, he's not with us anymore, but at the time he was there at Wheelock, Albert. He was in what they call the punishment room, where the girls were put into, basically it's a small closet underneath the stairs in the dorm. If they were caught speaking, you know, their language or singing Choctaw hymns or whatever, they were put in that room, and they were literally had their mouths washed out with soap, you know, or they had to eat a bar of soap, and they couldn't leave until they did. So that was what they call the punishment room. So Albert's sitting in there, and we have a list of names of some of the girls who passed away there, and as he's saying one of the names, something pushed him against the wall. So as far as anything like physical, those kind of things are probably the most intense it's ever been. Other than that, we had a couple people get kind of nauseous, get sick. You just get kind of a feel. If it's a darker place, you kind of feel that. But for the most part, that's really about it.
Is there like a certain like key person that's at those areas that y'all maybe talk to get the background of the history, or like a lot of people?
It's hopefully a lot of people. It depends on locations. It depends on, hopefully we can get, the more the better, you know, to really tell that story. We love, especially we love talking to the elders too, getting their side of it. We try to get historians involved. We try to get eyewitnesses accounts. So the more we can get, the better. In some cases, we have them come on board too, kind of like as a guide. They walk with us and stuff too. So some locations, just to get permission, they have to go with us. You know, like with Wheelock Academy, Choctaw Nation gave us permission to film there, only with the condition that their manager over there at Wheelock Academy was able to go with us. At our church, documentary, the current pastor there, Jim C. Harjo, went with us. He volunteered. There's stories of whenever there's Seminole singing, that's when things start becoming really active, and so he was more than willing to come out with us, and he stayed there the whole time to about 5 o'clock in the morning, just singing the whole night. And so, yeah, we try to get people involved. We try to get some of the locals involved as much as we can, either through interviews or sometimes they go with us on the investigation.
Let me ask you to backtrack a little bit here. Now, you mentioned you felt a hand on your shoulder,
Right.
and others of your crew had been physically pushed out of the way or against a wall or something like that. I'm curious as to, what did that feel like, and, what went through your mind, and I guess a third part to the question that we'll come to is how do you deal with skeptics? So the first part, what did it feel like when there was a hand on your shoulder and there wasn't any hand you could see?
It creeped me out. It's just it's a creepy feeling because obviously I'm a believer, and you want to see something or you want to hear something, but when you actually do or physically have a presence there, there's nothing that can really prepare you for it, and so yeah, it is creepy.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm laying my hand on your shoulder right now. Did it feel the same, or was there some other sensation there?
Oh, it feels the same. It feels like there's physically, it wasn't like, nothing jolted through my body or nothing like that. It felt like there was someone actually behind me physically pushing me out. So it felt like just a hand. But when you know that there's no one with you, there's something there. And I think also, too, what adds to the creepiness factor is just the unknown. All these images go through your head of what it looks like,
Oh, boy, yeah.
And so, it's in the dark. You're in a hallway by yourself. If something happens to you, no one's going to be there to save you. And so I think all that kind of adds to it. And so for me, as a filmmaker, of course, I'm kind of a visual person. Images start coming through my mind of who is standing behind me. And so that's probably what is more creepier than anything. But it was an actual physical hand is that what felt like. I felt like I could turn around, there would somebody be standing there.
All right, and I guess the last part of that question, how would you, I don't know if the word is convince or explain this to a skeptic who's saying, yeah, you're making it up, or,
Well,
that kind of thing.
we don't try to, we just present the documentary. We say, this is what happened, this is what, and we especially at the screenings, we let them know that nothing has been altered, nothing has been added. If anything, in the edit, some of the voices that are captured, it's hard to hear, so we bring it up, or we try to bring, background noises down. That's the only thing we do. We don't ever add anything to it. And we let them know that. And so if when you watch the documentary, you see that we don't try to convince people, say this place is haunted or this place has this activity. We just show what happened to us that night. And, if they believe it, then they believe it. But, we're not trying to knock them over the head and say, you have to believe what we believe. And so we just try to show that this is what happened to us at night. It's kind of a journey of what happened on our investigation. So, and I think earlier you talked about the shows that you see on TV. I think they tried to. Yeah. They add this, some sound effects and all this kind of stuff, and the music, the background music, to try to really emotionally bring you in and kind of make you leave and, well, maybe it is true.
They want to sell the show.
And it is about ratings and stuff. And so we, when you watch us, when you see our reactions, it's just real reactions. We don't add, we don't pump it up with music or anything like that, and we don't try to convince people. If anything, if we want to convince anybody with anything, it's the history of the location that we're talking about. That's where we try to say this really happened.
Okay, before we go any further, we'll invite our listeners to give us a call. If you've got a question or something, perhaps a story to share, it's 918-756-3646. It's 918-756-3646. And no, this isn't radio anymore. Now, the presence of these, I don't know, what would you call them? Entities, spirits, powers, all of the above, none of the above. Do do you think any stronger with our native people than it is with anyone else? Are we more sensitive, or are we magnetized and draw this sort of thing toward us? What do you think?
I think we definitely, especially the locations that we go to, I think we have a stronger connection to those places. I think they're drawn to us. They are drawn to energy, and I think our energy is what brings them out. Or the locations that we pick, say for example, Wheelock Academy, it was a Choctaw boarding school, and we're speaking in Choctaw, and I think that helps bring it out too. And there's also just a sensitivity when we go there. We know what happened, and sometimes it saddens us, and so we have kind of a concerned feeling. We're not trying to, agitate them or anything like that. Like the questions you see on the ones on TV, they're trying to agitate them and try and bring them out in a certain way. We're not like that. We're more inviting, about it. And I think I think they can feel that. We tell them it's okay to talk to us. We do it in their native tongue, and I think that helps with it as well.
Okay, we have a caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Hi, who are you?
Oh, this is Susan from next door over at Food Sovereignty.
Hi.
Hi. I think I have seen these people because I'm into, ghost hunting, and we've had people out of our home place even. And I think I saw their one that they did at Seminole at the mansion.
Yeah, that was probably us.
Is that y'all?
Yes.
Dang, that was good. I was so glad to see Indian people doing this kind of stuff. Because everybody I talk to, because I'll collect ghost stories, and everybody I talk to has a ghost story. Sometimes they don't want to tell you right off, but everybody's got one. And one of the things that I think about whenever I talk, Native people being more sensitive, and I think it's cultural because I was always taught that it was real. And if you saw something, they believed you, and if it was bad, they tried to deal with it, and they just would say, oh, yeah, like Grandma and Mom, oh, yeah, sometimes things like that just happen. And I think being more accepting of it and having it be part of the culture makes us more apt to see things and believe it when we see it, not just say, oh, it was the wind.
Right.
So I think that helps us. Because a lot of people, they see things and they just refuse to see what it is.
Yeah, they got to have it in nuts and bolts sort of thing. All right, well, great. Thanks for calling. We appreciate your comment this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
She did raise a good point there. A lot of people, got to see it to believe it, that kind of thing. And you mentioned you being a filmmaker and kind of, I don't know, do you think that way too? I mean, do you have to eliminate all the possible solutions or causes before you come to a spiritual answer?
Yeah, because I'm also the editor on these documentaries. Whenever I'm reviewing the footage, you try to find every explanation that could be. This last one, our church. A lot of times we were outside walking around, so you're hearing just nature sometimes, and you try to eliminate all that. And because if you walk around trying to say, oh, everything you hear is an EVP or everything you hear is footsteps, then as a group you kind of lose credibility that way,
Yeah.
And so you have to eliminate all that. And so if I can possibly explain it, that it could be one of the team members in the next room talking or whispering or something like that. If I think it might be them, then I just won't put it in.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that make it into the documentaries, the ones I have no explanation, that I'm like, okay, well, it has to be something. Then I put it in there.
Sure. If it's Woodco knocking over a piece of wood, then that's what it is.
That's what it is, right?
It's not automatically a ghost story. It's the raccoon, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing how y'all have to think this out before y'all even attempt to go to these places, and it's just really, really cool to hear that. I mean, I was going to ask before the other questions, but this one kind of I wanted to say to you. Do you I don't know? Do y'all have I don't know, maybe not a blueprint of the house, but like an outline of the place or where y'all going to be at? Say, okay, you're covering this, and you should. There's a certain part of the area that might be haunted. That's what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. We do all that before through the interviews and everything before we even go investigate. The investigation part is the very last thing that we do. when I get there, I do as much of the interviews that I can. Sometimes it's off camera, and so based on those stories, you kind of know which room or which building is the hot spots, so to speak. And so, or we are given examples that they heard of. Maybe they saw a man walking through this trail or something like that. And so we know those stories going into it, and that helps in our investigation. And so if I can, yeah, I will have an actual blueprint of the location. And I try to organize it as much as I can as far as, I split the team into 3 groups, and they're given assignments to hit, building 1, 2, and 3, and they all alternate, take turns hitting each one up. And we try to stay to a certain time restraint, but it varies. Sometimes it could be really busy in one building and they don't want to leave yet. So you kind of have to play it by ear sometimes. But for the most part, we try to keep it as organized as we can, so we can get all the footage that we can.
Mm-hmm. Mark, with before y'all go, do y'all? This is like a 2-part question. Do y'all get say a prayer or get a blessing before y'all go into these areas? And then the next part of the question, after y'all leave, do any of these follow you home?
Well, we do. We do smoke off before we leave, just so we can be safe and make sure nothing does follow us home. Before we go into the location, we'll say a prayer. Just to kind of to bless the investigation, and then the actual, when we do smoke off, is at the very end. And I think we kind of learned to do it that way. You kind of learn from your mistakes, because in Fort Washita documentary is probably our least active one. And I think one of the reasons is because we smoked off before we started, and I think it kind of kept us from, kept them away from us, kind of kept us safe. And so now we kind of we do it the other way around, and there's other precautions that you can take too. Just the way you ask the questions. Every time you leave a room, even if you don't hear anything, you still say things like, you're not welcome to stay, or stay here. Don't follow me. Just things like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's, certain things that you do. As far as following us home, I really haven't heard any of the team members say anything except for Steve Jacob after the Wheelock Academy investigation. A week or so afterwards, he was just sitting in his house, and his dog started barking in the living room, just barking at nothing, at a space. And so Steve, his instinct took over, and he just grabbed his phone camera and started taking pictures. And in one of the pictures, a girl appeared, and it looked like the girls that wearing the school uniforms and everything that they used to wear at Wheelock. So, but other than that, nothing ever. I know from personal experience, nothing has ever followed me home.
We're speaking with Mark Williams of the Native American Paranormal Project. If callers or listeners, if you feel like calling in, if you have any questions for Mark, please give us a holler at 918-756-3646. Mark, I know Steve pretty well. I know Dee Dee also, but who else is on your team?
Well, we started with Happy Free Joe is the documentary host, and I guess she would probably be the very first one that we've had. It started with a conversation with her back in 2010 is when her and I had just a conversation about how interesting would it be to have a team kind of like this. So a year later is when it developed. After that, I just the power of social media. I just went on Facebook and put a post on there that I'm doing this documentary. I'm looking for Native American open-minded people to come on this project with me, and it started from there. And so Brian Freejo is one of the team members. That's Happy's brother. And you mentioned Steve and Dee Dee. John Factor, he lives in Oklahoma City. Darren Hudson. And at the very first documentary we had someone else named Renee, who was Darren's cousin, and Albert and Marina. Those three aren't with us anymore. But Marcus Freejo has been added since the first one, and that's Happy's brother.
Okay. They sound like a great team. I mean, they sound like they pretty much like an OJT and on-the-job training. I mean,
it really is, yeah.
I mean, and there was a one. I remember you talked about when Steve, with his situation, what happened. There was also a picture that y'all posted one time, I guess. Was it, if I'm not mistaken, was that at the Grisso Mansion?
Oh yeah, Grisso Mansion. I'm glad you brought that up. It's probably the best picture I've ever seen. Not just with us, but even things you see on TV, on the internet. It's one of the best pictures I've ever seen, and it wasn't even taken by us. What happened was at the Grisso Mansion, they do haunted tours. Simulation, they put that on. And this is, 2 years since our documentary Grisso Mansion came out, but it's still pretty popular around there. And so they want us to come in and kind of help out with the tour and just, tell personal stories and stuff that happened to us in our investigation. And so me and Marcus Friedjo went down there, and he was in the game room. And as the tour groups walk in, he's telling stories and stuff that happened to him while he was there. I'm in the ballroom telling stories that happened to me. And a part of my presentation was I had a monitor and kind of showing clips from the documentary. And so different tour groups are walking through. Well, toward the end, there's one group and everybody's faced against the wall. It's almost like a classroom. I'm in the front and everybody's kind of facing me. And at the very end, I tell everybody they're welcome to take pictures and video. If you think you captured something or if you think you see something, show me or send it to us, through Facebook, and we'll post it and give you, photo credit, video credit, whatever. And as soon as I said that, about 10 or 15 seconds later, I hear, and people start taking pictures. A group to my left started like, "Oh my God," and so she said, "I think I see something." And I was thinking, okay, yeah. I mean, a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's dust, or you don't. A lot of times it's not. And so when she showed it to me, you see right next to me. There's a girl standing right next to me, and it's clear. You can see her hair, almost her face, wearing the white dress, shoes, everything.
Let's come back to that.
Hang on to that thought. We've got another caller here. Hello, caller. Are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi. Who are you?
Georgianne.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning. I was wanting to ask, I just got into the radio show after he was describing what these are. Could he describe that again?
Now,
describe which part?
Okay, the very first, when y'all was airing, talking about the difference of what?
Between this project and the TV shows?
That is correct.
Okay, yeah. All right, Mark.
The difference between us?
Right.
Well, it's just, I think it's the way we present it and the way we go about the investigations. Like, for example, the ones on TV promote themselves as ghost hunters. We don't even do that. I don't even like the term as far as being ghost hunters. I see it as more, we're just storytellers. The ones on TV, it is about ratings. They add and they pump in a lot of music and little effects in there. Ours is nothing like that. It's a legit documentary. It's not a TV show. We spend a lot of the time in the documentary talking about the history of the location. Because one of the reasons I do that is because if we go into a location and we find nothing at all, there's no voices, nothing. Well, at least the audience can still walk away having learned something about that location. So it's still kind of educational in a way. So that's the way I see it. And so, and we've been lucky enough so far that we've captured at least something on every documentary. So we try to keep it, we keep it as real and legit as possible and as far as away as from the other TV shows as possible.
Okay. And also, I would like to know, I don't know if you answered this or not, whenever y'all do this and find out the location and what y'all are going into. Whenever y'all go to that location, what do y'all feel?
I think it depends on each person. It's a mix. I mean, there's anxiety. There's kind of a fear because it's just unknown. But I think for the most part, everybody's pretty excited. Because everybody here is open-minded too, and so it's a little bit of everything.
I mean, do y'all feel anything, any presence, or,
Probably again, it depends on the location. I think like with our second one, Wheelock Academy, I think I can probably speak on the team on this one, on behalf of the team on this one, is everybody felt a dark presence there, like something didn't want us there. I know I felt that, and same thing with Gristle Mansion. There's one of our team members, John. He doesn't. We hold screenings sometimes at the mansion over there, and he doesn't really want to go because he does not like that place.
Oh boy!
And but you know, on the whole other end of the spectrum, our latest one, our church, everybody had a calm feeling there. They felt there was a warm, you know, there's a comfort feeling there. And so, and that's the way the documentary is put together on that one. Is we're trying to show there can be good spirits and bad spirits, and at that location, there definitely was good spirits.
Okay, caller, thanks. We appreciate you listening in, first of all, and your comments and questions. So we'll invite other listeners. If you're interested, give us a call, 918-756-3646. Now, let's turn to the documentaries for a second here. Now, I had a chance to take a look at the one, I believe it's called Our Church. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And it didn't seem like this place was in use. I mean, the camp houses were all pretty much seen better days and pretty rough looking. So it was abandoned, or?
Well, most of those camp houses were abandoned. The church is still very much in use.
Okay, great.
I think they're down to like 2 camp houses. Well, 3 really, but 2 they pretty much use at every church meeting.
So it could get pretty busy around lunchtime.
Oh yeah.
Now, in looking at at that documentary, you know, you shared film clips of what you'd seen and what was there, and at first, being I guess prove it to me kind of guy, I didn't see much. And then they talked about globes, and I was looking real hard, and for me, I really wasn't seeing it, but then later on, the more I watched, we saw some of that stuff, including the shadow that was that standing next to you or one of your people there?
Yeah, I was standing right in front of Steve.
Oh boy, yeah, and you know it was dark and things like that, but you could see the distinct outline of a person standing there. I thought, now that's not something you see every day, thank God, and I certainly mean that.
Yeah.
But later on, we did see the globes appearing, and when they would move across the screen, that you could see a trail behind them. Like, is that the bulk of what you run across, or is it the shadow form or sounds? What do you see or hear the most?
Mostly, I think, if anything, I think we've gotten a lot of more voices than anything with that documentary and our past ones. The shadow, that was probably one of the better ones that we've gotten.
Oh boy!
And you could, I mean, you saw it. You could actually hear it when it moved too. And so the shadows, we've got an apparition at Fort Washita, which is kind of more of a mist kind of looking. We get orbs every now and then, usually through photos. But that was the one that you saw. That was one of the rare ones that we actually got in video, and as you saw, it was pretty active in that room. So
gave me the shivers there for a second. Now, the church itself, I'm curious now. Is it something about a church or a school or something? One of those two places that draws more power or energy?
I think, you know, with that church and a lot of these old Indian churches, you know, around Seminole area and here in Creek Country too, is especially way back then, it was a huge part of, you know, of their lives, and they would spend so much time there, spend summers there, and sometimes a lot of families would live there. It was a place they called home. You know, back then too, every Sunday the church was packed, you know, and so it revolved around their life so much that it was a special place to them. And so when they pass on, you know, they're buried on these church grounds too, so it's still their home. And I think it's just they want to be there, and this is kind of what the current pastor talked about too, is they want to be there, they want to sing with them, they want to fellowship. And so whenever you hear the singing and they're singing their Seminole hymns, it brings them out, and they just want to be a part of it as well.
A positive energy.
Right.
Okay, we've got another caller. Good morning, caller. Are you with us?
Yeah, this is Susan again.
Hi.
Yeah, I had a question. Do you think they'll do the council house?
Oh, that is a good question. That was on the list to ask. So thanks for bringing it up. The council house right here behind us, and we've had people who worked there with the old association saying, they heard things and had seen this and that. And one of our photographers was doing some interior shots and inside, looking towards the main doors on the north side, and she said, "Look at this," and there was those translucent blue and white globes. She said that I swear weren't there, but when you looked at the film,
it was there.
It was there,
Wow.
and it's digital camera, so there's nothing, no film actually. But council house, it seems like it's got an incredible potential for this sort of thing. Would that ever be a subject for you?
Yeah, that's what we're looking for, and that's why I like doing these type of discussions. Is we get suggestions to places that we can go to. So once we get a suggestion, I'll look into it and see if it's even possible, if we can get permission to go out there. We look at the story behind it and everything, and so if we can't make it into a feature documentary, then we'll look into let's do a mini documentary, which is usually 5 minutes to 20 minutes, and so it's something that we could probably look into.
Yeah, I think it would be certainly worthwhile because you can feel a lot of energy there.
Mark, let's go to the investigation, and then after the investigation, the hours that y'all put into doing all this. And I'm not just talking about investigating one room and everything. I'm talking about the editing, getting this ready for to show. How many hours did it take to go into all this?
Well, the investigation part, it is usually about 16 to about 26 hours just of footage, and then from that it goes into the edit, and I'm the editor on the project. So we shot that. Well, let me kind of go back a little bit. Production in general, we started filming in July, and we released it in December. So the whole thing took 6 months, but the edit took about 2 months. Because we didn't go out there. We started filming interviews in July. We didn't go out there until September, as far as the investigation. So from September to December is when I was in the edit room. And a lot of it is just reviewing footage. I mean, you're in there for weeks just reviewing footage, and it can be very monotonous because you're looking at footage over and over and over, and you have to watch for every little shadow, every little thing. And sometimes, a team could be in one room. There could be 2 cameras rolling. So I got to look at the same footage. Like, say Steve has a camera, and I have to go through all of his footage. And say Dee Dee has a camera, I have to go through all of hers. Because sometimes one will capture something when the other one won't. So you have to go through all that. So as actual man hours, I've never actually sat down and counted it. But I just know from the production, we started in July, and it took about 6 months to put this whole thing together.
I'm no mathematician, but I'm going to say that's a lot. So.
Mark, have you ever been scared out of someplace, something run you off?
No, I get asked a lot when we're investigating, do I get scared? And to be honest, I'm not trying to be all tough or anything, but I really don't, because my mind is in production mode. I'm thinking, are we getting the shots? Is everything lit right? Are we, is everything charged? Are the batteries charged? That kind of stuff.
Sure.
So I'm always thinking that type of thing. How is this going to look on the documentary? Every now and then something will happen where it'll kind of bring you back to, wait a minute. It kind of reminds you where you're at. But nothing has really ran us off. And if we was ever at a location where I felt like a team was in danger, if there was something, something demonic or something that's just not safe, then we would go ahead and just call it quits and go ahead and leave, Again, we're just trying to tell the story. We're not trying to bring anything out either. So, if that ever happened, then we would leave.
Okay. What about hoaxes? You ever had someone try and put one over on you?
No, not yet.
Not exactly the kind of subject you want to mess around with.
Right.
Okay. As we were in language class, actually, our Mahaya mentioned she had attended a presentation of our church. I believe it was Eufaula recently. Now, is this something that your group does a lot, to travel around Indian country and share this stuff? How does that work?
Yeah, that's what we do. Is we love going to the public screenings because we get to meet the fans and the supporters, and that's when we get to hear the suggestions. And a lot of times in the Q&A session, they'll show us pictures that they capture on their phone, And so we hold public screenings all the time. We put it out there. We want to bring it to anywhere and everywhere. All they got to do is just contact us, let us know, and if they have a venue, they have the means and resources, they can set it up. We'll be there.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that. We have another caller, I believe. Hello, caller. Are you with us?
Hello, this is Gary calling from Oklahoma City.
Hi. Got a question?
Yes. Of all the different places that you've went to do your investigations, how would you rate the paranormal activity at the Griswold Mansion? The reason I ask is I am a Seminole tribal member, and I've been in that Griswold Mansion. It's been probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and at the time I wasn't aware of the activity there, so it's not like I really was looking for something. If I ever went again, I'd kind of be on the lookout, so I just kind of wanted to find out how would you rank the paranormal activity there compared to other places that you went to?
I think it's right up there. I think the most active place we've been to was Wheelock, our second one. I think Bristol's right next to it, and the only reason I think we didn't get as much as Wheelock is because we was only at Griswold Mansion for, I think, 3 hours. Seminole Nation gave us 3 hours to be out there, and within those 3 hours we captured quite a bit. At Wheelock, we was there for like 7.5, I think maybe 8 hours out there. And so we got quite a bit at Griswold, but just the vibe and just you can kind of feel a presence there. I think it was right up there with Wheelock.
Okay, yes. My wife went there probably about a year ago, and she said then she felt something there. So she didn't see anything, but she had a feeling, though.
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
Yeah, you can definitely feel something when you walk in, especially in the basement area. That's where a lot of the stories come from, is in the basement part.
Okay, thanks for calling. Appreciate you joining us this morning. Now, our crew has heard stories, and we know people, other employees here on our tribal campus have talked about things happening. You got a big smile on your face, Darren.
We've been on them. That's the thing. A couple of us have tried to go out on them, and big mistake. But continue.
Yeah, I think Head Start folks had once said they were taking their kids out on a field trip, and one of the children turned around and said, "What about that little girl there?"
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't account for that little girl. I don't know anything else about it, but they said, yeah, that happened. And then I've got some friends over in housing who said they've seen some things happening over there in their front lobby, and some of it is on their security tapes.
Really?
And there were stories about our old former communications building, and there was a little girl wandering around there, and things like that. So is this enough ammunition for you, so to speak? Would this, raise an eyebrow of you wanting possibly do an investigation here on the campus?
Yeah, it's definitely raising an eyebrow right now. Especially if it sounds like there's that many stories, and if there's people who want to come out and talk about it and get on camera and tell their story. Yeah, we'll definitely look into it.
Well, there are some graves there on campus. The little houses there, and I don't know. Do you think that have anything to do with it, Darren?
I would probably say that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Another question I was wanting to ask: are y'all hiring? I mean, this is very intriguing.
Well, man, that's one of the main questions we always get. I think every day, I check our messages, and people always want to join. Which usually, for the feature documentaries, I really try to keep the same group, just because we go to public screenings. I want the audience members to get familiar with the team and get familiar with their personalities, that kind of thing. But for our mini documentaries, we're more flexible with that. We can bring people on, guest investigators, especially some of the locals and stuff. So the mini documentary, something like here at the council house here, if somebody wanted to come join us. If you want to go with us, just let us know.
Okay, definitely.
All right, we have to put you out there, Darren.
Yeah.
Well, as much fascination as I have with this subject, I wish we had another hour or two to play with, but we don't. So we're going to have to wrap this one up today. But we'd like to have you come back. And, if you do any other works, particularly if you're looking at our tribal campus, I think we can maybe slide that by a few people.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you come back. Now, if someone has some information to share or wants to schedule a screening of any of your documentaries, how do they get in touch with you?
The best way is they can find us on the email, nativeboyproductions@gmail.com. Just send us a message. We also have a Facebook page, which we have, a lot of people get us in contact with us that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just www.facebook.com/Native American Paranormal Project. Just send us a message, and then we'll be in touch.
Okay. Well, Mark Williams of the Native American Paranormal Project, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. As I say, we could have done another hour on this. It's really easy. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a real short break here, and we'll be back with the rest of our show. So stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio.
Hear that? That's the sound of hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Nearly 22 million women and girls and nearly 1.6 million men and boys have been raped in their lifetime, probably by someone they know. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, confidential support is only a phone call away. Contact the Mvskoke Creek Nation Family Violence Prevention Program at 918-732-7869 and ask to speak to an advocate. Services are free and open to the general public.
We're back to Mvskoke Radio on 1240 The Brew. We're going to change a little thing. But first off, I want to thank Mark Williams again for being able to talk to us about the Native American Paranormal Project. It's amazing what they've done, and it's amazing what they're going to keep on doing. We're going to switch gears a little bit. Gary, how long have you been on Mvskoke Radio?
Let's call it about 4 years now. I started with Gerald Wofford, kind of filling in for Jason there, and just kind of eased into it.
It's pretty amazing that you're able to do that. But the thing about it is, we know about Gerald. When he was on here, we knew about Jason. We never really knew about what you've done or what you have done to be able to get into this type of work. So first off, I want to everybody knows Gary Fife, the technical producer, the host of Mvskoke Radio. But can you give us a little background into your history?
Well, baby, if you've ever wondered whatever became of me, I'm living on the air here in Okmulgee. And anyway, I guess to make a short story long, I began, right out of college during the height of the civil rights movement, and we saw what was going on across our nation, changing the face and the texture of American culture. And I always wondered, where the Indian people, where do we fit? Don't exactly fit in, with the African American movement or the Latinos and the gays, anything like that, because we have a political relationship with the U.S. I mean, we have treaties and we have like a BIA and that sort of thing. So I wondered, how can I get involved and do something to help, to make things change? And so I chose journalism. And it was a switch from petroleum geology. I could have looked like Ned Beatty sitting around with white shoes and a belt, living off the fat of the oil companies or something. But I wanted to, to do what I could. And a lot of the Native activism at the time kind of got knee-jerk reactions. People, and, for various reasons, our young people were saying, well, we've got to change this. This has to go. We got to get rid of all this racist, etc. And people weren't listening. And I admired the energy, but I'm saying, well, you got a good point, but it's not getting across. So let's tell the story in a journalistic fashion, both sides of the story. You've got to know, who's for something and who's against it to make sure. And this is what I chose to do. And varying degrees of success. It antagonized some of my more radical brethren, saying, no, you got to go get the white man, that kind of stuff. And then the more conservative elements of our society say, well, you're not doing enough. Why aren't you going after these crazy people, running around tearing stuff up? So it started in print and photography. Right out of college, I went to work for LaDonna Harris and Americans for Indian Opportunity in Washington, D.C. Talk about, going from the pan to the fire there. And got to see how the government works and how it doesn't work and how Native people have a role to play. And started there and worked through an alphabet soup of Native organizations, including National Congress of American Indians, the old National Tribal Chairman's Association, American Indian Press, of which I am so proud, and a couple of other smaller groups, and learned how the relationship worked and the kinds of information our people needed. And so we tried to figure out a way to do that, and then I got an invitation to move to Minneapolis to work with Migizi Communications and First Person Radio, which is a half-hour magazine show about different parts of our country and different Native people, and saw the impact that medium had. People sat down and listened, and if you had good stuff, if it was boring, they'd switch off and go listen to something else. But so this is a medium here that is more powerful than the print, I thought. And I still feel that way, but everything has its place. With a newspaper, you can throw it down and come back a day or two and read it again. But with the radio, once it's done, it's done. And decided this is the way I wanted to go. And so we hung around there for a while and worked with a number of different groups, and then got an invitation to move to Alaska with Alaska Public Radio Network to produce a program that had never been done before, a weekday radio news service for Native American people. And my thought was, we have to develop a service that does indeed acquire a professionalism among our own people, to teach them, and to have an impact on the public radio networks around.
Did you say weekday?
Weekday, like 5 days a week.
I shiver whenever we do this, and this is once a week for an hour. So I mean, it's strange that the service, which is now National Native News, which I'm proud to say is still on the air, it provided a 5-minute news update from reporters around the nation, and then that was followed by a 5-minute feature piece. So we got current events, and then something perhaps cultural or a more in-depth look at something. Here's a powwow dancer, but not just a powwow dancer. This is a woman in a jingle dress, as opposed to buckskins. And we'd explain. The news was a lot of stuff out of Washington, D.C. and the government and legislation. And then around the nation, we developed a core of reporters who were reporting on what was happening in their areas. And I found we had to do an educational process there, because public radio reporters were as ignorant as anyone else about Native peoples. We had to teach them that Indian people are like Europeans. You got the Italians, and they're different from the Russians, and the English are different from the Swedes. Apaches and Aleuts are different. Creeks are different from the Senecas, and things like this. So we had to teach them, no, the Navajos don't do a Sundance, so don't go crying about the reasons why they can't do it this year. That's a name group coming down from Minneapolis, you idiots. And we had to teach them, because there is no Native America 101 being taught in our educational system. So we did that and met with success, and it convinced me that was the path to go. And so that was my baby. It's still on the air now, something I'm quite proud of, I think. And we taught our own people to do this too, because so many of them still wanted to go get the white man. And said, well, here's how to do it in a sneaky way. You can, put that out there, but also, hey, you have to balance it. And that way people get both sides of the story and decide for themselves. So this is, as I say, making a short story long. That's been my career here, and Now you said you've been to D.C. You've also, worked in Minnesota, in Alaska. Where is there any other places? I know. I've heard from Stan last year. Whenever I was talking to him, how he told me where all the places he's been. Where else have you been?
Well, those are pretty much the places. That's where I've been. But in the course of that work, I can honestly say, I've actually been in the White House and got to sit down on the furniture and went to press briefings. Not many, but I can say I did. The halls of Congress, Supreme Court. But I've also been in the jungles of Central America with the Mosquito people and saw little kids carrying AK-47s. They'd taken off of dead Sandinistas or Somoza soldiers and things like that. And then traveling, I can say I've been in Florida and seen alligators, and then on the North Slope on the edge of the Arctic Ocean and helped Eskimo community pull a whale out of the water there. So, and everything in between, Plains tribes, the eastern coast of buffalo. I got chased by a buffalo a couple times there. And things like that. I saw the first gambling operations in the country. It started high stakes bingo in Minnesota, Shakopee, and we thought this is going to change everything. And boom, here we are.
Wow.
Things like that. Been in AIM encampments. I've had people on the outside take a shot at us. Luckily, I was near a hole big enough to cover me. But I got to see landmark pieces of legislation being developed and passed. Been down to talk to alcoholics on the streets, little kids, moms and pops and soldiers and all kinds of people. And this was my calling. This is what I was happiest doing. That's what I try to bring to this show, is that kind of variety and feel and in-depth coverage and discussion.
It's amazing. I'm in here with more than 20, 30 years of experience. Experience for in this field, and it's just amazing just to hear that. And like we said earlier about Mark. We could go another hour. I could probably go another talking to Mark, but we could also probably go another hour just talking to you and hearing your stories as well.
I've got a few of them out there, but I'm sure our listeners are saying, what kind of ego has this guy got, putting a whole show about himself on there?
Well, in a way, that's fine.
How much did he pay Darren?
We just never heard about, what your experiences consisted of.
That's one thing that I'm happy to bring with me and share with our staff, including teaching, people like yourself and Amanda and Jessica and others, the radio business, and sharing those skills and experience. And being the old man of the newsroom, I'm called on from time to time to share some of that history and saying, well, who do we talk to if we wanted to go to Washington about this thing or that thing, and this sort of stuff. It's been quite a career, and I'm just happy what I'm doing. And of course, I get now to put a lot of it back into print. My favorite column, of course, Emma Benaya. It's a little elbow in Uncle Sam's rib cage occasionally. Remind our society of what we are.
It leaves the bruising.
Yeah, occasionally it does, but it's the kind of thing that I think has been quite fulfilling. We could just get the paychecks and that kind of stuff, would be okay. But enough about me. We got a few announcements we need to get on the air.
And I apologize for Gary. Let's go ahead and get started.
I just got started there.
First off, the Indian Sweetheart Market and Indian Taco Sale, Saturday, February 13th from 12 to 6 at Elks Lodge in Sapulpa, Oklahoma, 24 South Poplar Avenue. Food will be provided by Autumn Star Catering. Next one will be the SOAR event, SOAR, today, as a matter of fact, is the second annual Student Outreach and Resource Day from 9 to 1. It's going on right now. And if you have any questions on it, it's going over at the Dome, the Mvskoke Dome, which is in the Claude Cox Omniplex. The number is 918-732-7692.
The Creek Nation Employment and Training Office is announcing a 10-week internship program for college, juniors, seniors, and graduate students. You can relate to participants in the field of study, gain professional experience, and become possibly engaged in the Mvskoke Creek Nation workforce. You've got to be a citizen and a permanent resident. Call 918-732-7773.
Warriors Honor Women is having a tailgate party tomorrow, February 4th from 1 to 3. For more information, please contact the Family Violence Prevention Program, 918-732-7979.
Okay, I guess the last one, community meeting on teen pregnancy prevention in Okmulgee County is coming up Monday, February the 8th from 2:30 to 5 p.m. in the Okmulgee Public Library. Discuss the current status of teen pregnancies in an open forum to share concerns and develop a plan of action. That's Monday, February the 8th, 2:30 to 5 p.m. in the library. That's about all we can get in today. So thank you for listening, Mabo Hedget Wedgkis. And Mado Mabo Hedgetskat.
Mado.
Join the Brew Crew. You might be our next winner. Text
You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio.
Your chance to win.
Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.